The Silent Knower. Introduction. In a world buzzing with noise, distraction, and endless demands, we often lose sight of the one truth that quietly shapes every moment, the observer within. This silent part of you is not just a passive witness, but a profound force that colors your reality, shapes your thoughts, and breathes life into your experience. What if I told you that everything you believe about yourself, your struggles, and even your dreams can shift simply by tuning into this silent space? What if the key to transformation, peace, and authentic power lies not in doing more, but in knowing more deeply? The Silent Knower isn't about theories or quick fixes. It's a journey into the heart of your being, where the noise fades and clarity emerges. Here you'll discover how your perception molds the world, how to meet your inner wounds without fear, and how to awaken to the truth that has always been present, waiting patiently beneath the surface of your busy mind. This is a book for those ready to awaken from autopilot, to move beyond the distractions, and to embrace the quiet knowing that connects us all. Because reality, at its core, isn't something you find out there. It's something you become. Chapter 1. The Voice Behind the Noise. There's a moment in every person's life, whether whispered or thunderous, when the noise of the world suddenly fades. It might be in the stillness of dawn, a pause between frantic thoughts, or the quiet after a storm inside your mind. In that rare space you sense something different, a presence, a watcher, a silent voice that doesn't shout or demand but simply is. It's there, beneath the constant chatter of worries, plans, and memories, a calm, steady presence you may have overlooked all your life. This voice behind the noise is the Silent Knower. It's not something you have to summon or chase. It's already inside you, quietly observing everything without judgment or haste. It doesn't need to explain, convince, or perform. It simply watches, the unshakable witness to your inner world. Most of us spend our days caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, emotions, and distractions. Our minds jump from one worry to the next, replaying past regrets or rehearsing future fears. The world outside clamors with endless noise, notifications, conversations, news, the hum of daily life. Amid this chaos, the Silent Knower often goes unnoticed, buried beneath the flood of external and internal voices clamoring for attention. But here's the secret: that silent voice is the root of true clarity, peace, and understanding. It's the still point in the storm, the lighthouse guiding you back home to yourself when everything else feels overwhelming. And unlike the other voices in your head, the anxious ones, the doubting ones, the ones rushing to label or judge, this voice is unchanging. It doesn't react or get swept away by emotion. It simply is. Consider the mind like a radio constantly broadcasting countless stations: worry, anger, excitement, doubt. The Silent Knower is the receiver, tuning in without getting caught up in the signal. It hears the noise but remains untouched, aware of each wave without being defined by it. This is not an abstract idea reserved for mystics or philosophers. It's an experience everyone can recognize if given the chance. Think about moments when you felt truly calm, where the noise of your thoughts seemed to disappear, perhaps while walking in nature, listening to music, or during a heartfelt conversation. In those moments, the Silent Knower reveals itself as the quiet backdrop against which all the noise plays. Yet most of us never intentionally cultivate this voice. Instead, we mistake the chatter for who we are. We identify with the anxious thoughts, the relentless inner critic, the endless mental to-do lists. We believe the story our mind tells us is the whole truth, that this noise defines our identity, shapes our worth, and controls our destiny. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. This distinction is the beginning of awakening. Imagine standing beside a rushing river. The water is turbulent, noisy, sometimes frightening. If you plunge in, you get swept away by the current, tossed and tossed again. But if you stand on the riverbank, steady, calm, watching, you're safe. The river flows, but it doesn't carry you along. You observe the waves without drowning in them. That steady observer is your silent knower. It watches the constant flow of your thoughts and feelings, but is untouched by their turbulence. It sees them arise and pass away like clouds in the sky, neither holding onto them nor pushing them away. It simply allows them to be. This voice behind the noise carries immense power. From this still place, you can begin to see your life clearly, your patterns, your fears, your hidden beliefs. You stop being ruled by unconscious impulses and start living with conscious choice. In fact, this voice is the doorway to freedom. Freedom from the prison of mental chaos, from the endless shoulds and musts, from the exhausting chase, to fix, control, or escape your experience. Freedom to rest in what is, even when it's hard, messy, or uncertain. Freedom to connect with your true self beneath the surface, the unshakable core that's always been there. But how do we find this voice? How do we step out of the noise and into the silence? It starts with attention, not the kind of attention that pulls you deeper into your thoughts. No, this is a different kind of attention, gentle, curious, and non-judgmental. It's like shining a flashlight into a dark room, not to change what's inside, but to simply see it clearly. This practice might sound simple, but it requires courage. Because when you truly watch your mind, you may uncover pain, confusion, or discomfort that you've avoided. You might notice how deeply entangled you are in old stories, fears, and identities, and that's okay. The silent knower doesn't turn away from what's difficult. It meets all of it, the light and the shadow, with unwavering presence. It allows things to be as they are, without trying to fix or resist. Through this radical acceptance, transformation begins. When you stop fighting your inner experience, the noise naturally quiets. It doesn't vanish instantly, but it loses its grip. You begin to realize that you are the space in which thoughts and emotions arise, not the storm itself. Over time, this awareness grows stronger, like a muscle exercised daily. You find pockets of peace amidst chaos. You become less reactive, more grounded, more compassionate with yourself and others. This silent voice, this deep knower, is the seed of wisdom inside you. It knows things your mind cannot grasp, the impermanence of pain, the interconnectedness of all life, the radiant spark of joy hidden beneath suffering. It invites you to remember who you truly are beyond the noise, not the endless stories and judgments, but the quiet awareness that holds it all. As you journey through this book, you will learn to listen more deeply to that voice behind the noise. You will explore how it shapes your perception, your reality, and ultimately, your freedom. This is the beginning of your awakening. The silent knower is waiting patiently inside you. All it asks is for your attention. Chapter 2. The moment you noticed. There is a quiet moment in everyone's life, an instant so subtle yet so profound that it marks the beginning of everything changing. It might have happened while you were staring out a window on an ordinary day or in the middle of a sleepless night when thoughts spiraled beyond control. Maybe it was during a conversation when suddenly you stepped outside the noise of the words and just watched yourself listening. That moment, the moment you noticed, is a crack in the wall of automatic living, a break in the relentless rhythm of habit. For many, it comes unexpectedly, like a soft whisper in a roaring storm. It's not always loud or dramatic. It doesn't always arrive with fanfare, but when it does, it changes the way you experience everything afterward. It's a silent invitation to awaken, a door slightly ajar to a deeper part of yourself that's always been there but rarely seen. The subtle awakening. Imagine you're driving home after a long day. Your hands move on autopilot, shifting gears and pressing pedals, but your mind races through a checklist of worries and tasks. Then suddenly, your gaze lifts from the road, and for a split second, you realize you're not the thoughts racing. Through your mind, you are the one noticing them. You're the witness. That realization is a tiny awakening. It's the moment you start to understand that your inner world, the thoughts, emotions, fears, and hopes, is not all there is. There's a quiet observer behind the scenes, silently watching the play of your mind. This moment is often lost, slipping through the cracks of our busy lives. Yet, it's the seed from which true awareness grows. Why we miss it? Why don't we? Notice this moment more often, because from childhood we're taught to identify with our thoughts and feelings as who we are. We chase the storylines created by our minds. I'm tired, I'm anxious, I'm happy. We live inside these narratives without question, as if they define us absolutely. But the moment you noticed, when you recognized yourself as the watcher, not the noise, reveals a different truth. You are more than the stories your mind tells. You are the space in which those stories unfold. This insight is the cornerstone of inner freedom. It gently cracks open the illusion that your identity depends on external circumstances or internal chatter. The power of that moment. Why does this simple act of noticing matter so much? Because it changes the relationship you have with your mind and emotions. Instead of being swept away by every passing feeling, you start to see them as temporary waves on the surface of a vast ocean. Think of the mind as a busy theater stage, full of actors playing different roles. The silent knower is the audience member sitting quietly in the dark, watching the drama without being pulled into the story. This shift, from being lost in the play to watching it, creates space for choice. You don't have to react impulsively or get carried away by fear or anger. You can respond with awareness, with a sense of calm that comes from knowing you are not your thoughts. Stories of awakening. Many of the greatest awakenings in human history began with such a moment of noticing. Take, for example, the story of Eleanor, a woman from Portland who felt trapped in a relentless cycle of anxiety. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, she found herself sitting quietly, watching the storm of her thoughts. Instead of trying to fix or fight them, she simply noticed their presence. In that stillness, she realized, I am not my anxiety. I am the awareness that sees it. That insight didn't instantly erase her challenges, but it gave her a new way to relate to them. Over time, that moment grew into a steady practice of presence, reshaping her entire experience of life. Or consider Marcus, a New York artist who wrestled with self-doubt for years. During a walk in Central Park, he paused to observe his thoughts drifting between fear and hope. The clarity of simply watching, without judgment, became a turning point, a quiet rebellion against his inner critic. These moments don't come with a warning sign, and they don't need to be grand. They're often gentle, quiet, and deeply personal, but they mark the beginning of reclaiming your inner freedom, the science behind noticing. Modern neuroscience supports this ancient wisdom. Studies on mindfulness and meditation show that when you cultivate the habit of noticing your thoughts and emotions, different areas of your brain light up, those involved in self-awareness, emotional regulation, and empathy. This is no accident. The brain is remarkably plastic, meaning it can be trained to strengthen the observer part of you. With practice, the silent knower becomes clearer, louder, and more reliable. It's like discovering a muscle you never knew you had. At first it feels weak or unfamiliar, but with attention and care, it grows stronger, helping you live with more clarity and peace. How to recognize your moment. Noticing isn't about forcing awareness. It's about gently catching yourself when you drift into autopilot. Ask yourself, when was the last time I realized I was lost in thought? Can I feel the part of me that is simply watching right now? What happens if I pause and observe my emotions without trying to change them? Answering these questions invites you back to the present. It's a practice that can be done anywhere. In the quiet of your room, in the middle of a crowded street, or even during the chaos of your day. An invitation to awareness. The moment you noticed is an invitation from life. It's a call to awaken from the trance of automatic living and meet yourself fully. When you accept this invitation, you start a journey, not one that promises perfection or a life without pain, but one that offers freedom from being trapped by your own mind. This chapter is an homage to that subtle moment, a celebration of the silent knower within each of us who patiently waits to be seen. It's a reminder that you are not alone in your inner world. Behind the noise, there is a calm presence. Reflection today, I invite you to find your moment you noticed. Close your eyes and recall a time when you stepped back and watched your mind or emotions. What did it feel like? What did you learn about yourself in that moment? Know that this watcher inside you is always present, patiently observing, waiting for you to come home. Chapter 3. Where the world ends and you begin. There comes a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when the endless noise of the world begins to fade. The chatter of expectations, the flood of opinions, the relentless parade of distractions all start to soften. It's in that fragile silence that you realize something startling. The world as you know it is not where you truly live. Somewhere beneath the surface of appearances and the layers of daily life, a boundary exists. It's the place where the external chaos ends and your true self begins. This boundary is not drawn on a map. It cannot be measured or touched. Yet it is more real than anything you've ever held or seen. It is the sacred edge between the vast, often overwhelming world outside and the quiet sanctuary of your inner being. Most people never cross it. They live their whole lives tangled in the demands of society, lost in identity borrowed from culture, roles, and other people's expectations. But those who find this border, the place where the world ends and you begin, discover a hidden refuge. A place where the soul breathes freely and the silent knower resides. I remember the first time I sensed this boundary myself. It wasn't a thunderclap or a grand revelation. It was a simple, fleeting moment during a long walk. The city's noise was around me, cars honking, people talking, the constant hum of activity. But inside, I felt a stillness, a quiet space where none of that reached me. It was as if I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the vast landscape of life, but also standing inside a calm, dark cave, protected from the storm. In that moment, I knew something important. There is a part of me untouched by the world's chaos. This discovery is the first step toward freedom, because until you find where the world ends, you are trapped in it. Trapped in endless reactions, pain, fear, and false identity. The world's noise is loud, and it's easy to believe that your sense of self depends entirely on it. The mirror of other people's judgments, the approval or disapproval from society, the endless comparisons, these become your reality. You live as a reflection, not as the source. But what if the real you isn't out there at all? What if the true essence of who you are lies just on the other side of that invisible line, inside the silence where no one else can reach? That place is where the silent knower lives. It's not a voice in your head. It doesn't argue or judge. It simply watches. And in watching, it witnesses without attachment. This is the observer inside you who sees the swirling chaos, but isn't swept away by it. It is the calm eye within the storm. The challenge is that the world often pulls you back into its grip. It demands your attention, your energy, your identity. The expectations are relentless. To succeed, to fit in, to be someone. You're not. Social media floods your mind with curated lives and endless noise. News cycles bombard you with fear and outrage. Work relationships, responsibilities, all push you outward, away from that sacred inner edge. Yet the world you see is not the totality of your existence. It is a stage, yes, but you are not merely an actor playing a role. The world ends where your awareness begins. Behind the scenes, beneath the script, lies the silent presence, the true you, watching, knowing, unshaken. To reach this place requires courage and willingness. It asks you to step away from distraction, from noise, from the compulsive urge to define yourself by what you do, own, or achieve. It invites you to turn inward and meet yourself in that quiet room where no one else is allowed. This inner boundary is where you begin to reclaim your power. It's the moment when you realize that your value isn't dependent on external validation. The fears that once controlled you start to lose their grip. You no longer need to chase approval or avoid rejection because you are anchored in a deeper truth. And this truth is simple but profound. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your roles or your stories. You are the silent knower behind all of it, the presence that remains steady no matter what storms rage. Outside, once you discover this place, you begin to live differently. You're still in the world, but you're no longer of it. You act, but you do not react. You speak, but you listen first, to yourself, to that quiet witness within. Decisions become clearer because they come from the depth of your being, not the surface noise. Many spiritual traditions speak of this boundary. In the East, it's the witness consciousness, the part of us that observes without judgment. In the West, mystics call it the still small voice, or the inner light. But whatever name it carries, it points to the same truth. Beneath the chaos of life lies an unshakable core. This boundary between the world and the self is a gateway, not a wall. Crossing it doesn't mean escaping life. It means fully entering it with new eyes. Eyes that see without illusion, hearts that feel without attachment, and minds that rest without constant distraction. In practical terms, how do you find this place? It starts with presence. Simple moments of awareness when you stop chasing and start noticing. When you pause long enough to hear your own breath, to feel the ground beneath your feet, or to watch the sky without judgment. Meditation, mindfulness, and deep reflection are paths that help reveal this boundary. But even without formal practice, it is always there waiting for you to notice. The world is loud, it can overwhelm and confuse. But inside you, there is a place where that noise cannot reach, a place of peace, clarity, and truth, the place where the world ends and you begin. Remember, this boundary is sacred because it holds your freedom. It is the space where your essence is untouched by circumstance, unharmed by judgment, and unbroken by fear. The silent knower dwells here, not demanding attention, but quietly present, inviting you home. Chapter 4. The Lie of the Voice in Your Head. There is a constant companion in your mind, a voice that never truly rests. It narrates your life from the moment you wake until you fall asleep, and sometimes even beyond that. You might think it's simply your thoughts, your inner dialogue. But what if this voice isn't who you really are? What if everything it says is, in fact, a carefully crafted illusion? This is the story of the voice in your head, the one that talks, judges, fears, and doubts, and the lie it tells you every single day. Most of us grow up believing that this voice is our identity. It's familiar after all. It sounds like us, carries our accent, and often echoes the people around us. It's the storyteller weaving a narrative of your life, a story you believe to be true. You're not good enough, it whispers. You'll never succeed. They don't really like you. The voice is relentless, casting shadows over your self-worth, coloring your relationships, and framing your potential with limits. But here's the profound truth that most never realize. This voice, as convincing as it seems, is not reality. It is a construction, a habit, a collection of learned patterns and conditioned beliefs. It's the echo of old fears, past wounds, and social programming. It's a character that you inherited but do not need to own. Imagine for a moment that you're listening to a radio playing static and noise. The voice in your head is like that, full of chatter, opinions, predictions, and complaints. It demands your attention, but it rarely tells you the whole story. More often, it distorts, exaggerates, or outright fabricates. It's a relentless critic disguised as your own truth, and unless you question it, it will keep steering your life from behind the scenes. The question is, how did this voice come to dominate so much of your experience? How did it become so convincing that you believe it unconditionally? It's because we've never been taught to recognize it for what it really is, an imposter. From early childhood, we start absorbing messages about who we are supposed to be. Be careful. Don't be too loud. You're not smart enough. These messages form the foundation of the voice in your head, turning into rules and judgments that run on endless repeat. Over time, this inner narrator becomes the unquestioned authority on your life. What if you could pull back the curtain? What if you could meet this voice, not as an enemy to fight, but as a character to observe? This is the first step toward freedom. The silent knower inside you, the watcher behind the scenes, exists apart from this voice. It listens without judgment. It notices without getting caught up. It recognizes that the voice is only a part of your experience, not the whole truth. To understand the power of this voice's deception, consider how often it tricks you into believing stories about the future, stories about other people, and stories about yourself that are simply not true. It thrives on fear and uncertainty, spinning endless what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. And because you believe these stories, you live your life constrained by them. Yet beneath this chatter, beneath the noise, there is a stillness, an unchanging presence that does not speak, but simply is. This is the silent knower, the essence of who you really are. It is not tangled in thoughts or emotions. It is the space in which all these things arise and dissolve. The journey toward freedom begins with the recognition that the voice in your head is not your identity. You are the observer of that voice. You are the space in which it appears. You are not the story it tells. Many spiritual teachers have pointed to this truth. Eckhart Tolle calls it the observer consciousness. Byron Katie urges us to question our thoughts with relentless curiosity. This is not about silencing the voice, that's impossible, but about changing your relationship to it. When you start noticing the voice without reacting, the grip it has on your life begins to loosen. You create space where you can choose what to believe and what to let go. This shift is transformative. It opens the door to peace, clarity, and a deeper connection with your true self. Instead of being pulled by the endless chatter, you can move through life guided by presence and wisdom. Imagine how different your days would be if you stopped believing the voice every time it said, "I can't," or "I'm not enough." What if you began to respond to that voice with gentle awareness rather than automatic acceptance? What if you reminded yourself that you are not the voice, but the one who hears it? The lie of the voice in your head is powerful, but it's also fragile. It only holds power because you give it attention and belief. Once you wake up to the truth, it loses its control. Your silent knower is always there, waiting patiently beneath the noise. It invites you to rest in stillness, to witness your mind without judgment, and to reclaim your freedom. So today, start listening, not to the voice, but to the silence behind it. Watch the thoughts as they come and go like clouds drifting across a vast sky. Know that you are the sky itself, vast, open, and untouched by the passing storms. The voice will still speak, but it no longer defines you. You are the silent knower. Chapter 5. Stillness isn't empty. Have you ever sat in a moment so quiet, so still, that it felt like the world had paused just for you? Maybe you were caught in the hush of dawn before the sun fully woke, or in a room stripped of sound, with only your breath to keep company. At first, that silence might feel like emptiness, an absence. But what if I told you that stillness isn't a void at all? That beneath the surface of silence lies a vibrant presence, waiting to be discovered. In a culture that prizes doing, moving, and constant stimulation, stillness often gets dismissed as boredom or even failure. We rush to fill every second, whether scrolling on our phones, tuning into podcasts, or chasing endless tasks, because to stop feels like losing control. Yet stillness, when truly understood, is not the absence of life, but its richest, most fertile ground. It is where everything begins. Imagine standing by a lake on a windless day. The surface is smooth and unbroken, a perfect mirror to the sky. At first glance, it looks like nothing is happening, but look closer. Beneath that glassy calm, life teems. Tiny fish glide silently, plants sway gently below the waterline, and the whole ecosystem hums quietly with energy. Stillness, in nature, is alive, not dead. It's a paradox that's easy to miss but essential to grasp. Human consciousness operates much the same way. Our minds are often storms of thoughts, emotions, and stories, but behind that turbulence is a silent watcher, a quiet awareness that notices without judgment. This watcher is the essence of stillness. It doesn't need noise to exist. It thrives in the quiet, yet stillness is misunderstood. Many believe it means zoning out, shutting down, or emptying the mind of all thought. But real stillness isn't about erasing experience. It's about meeting your full experience, thoughts, feelings, fears, and joys, with open, unshaken, in presence. It's the difference between losing yourself in distraction and finding yourself in calm. Consider the story of Maya, a woman who carried the weight of anxiety for years. Every day was a flood of worries about the future, regrets from the past, and doubts about herself. She tried every distraction she could find to escape the chaos, TV, social media, busyness, but nothing lasted. Then, one evening, exhausted, she sat quietly on her porch as the world darkened. No music, no phone, just her and the stillness around her. At first, the silence felt unbearable, but slowly something shifted. Instead of pushing away her anxious thoughts, Maya began to notice them calmly, like clouds drifting across a wide sky. She realized that she was not the storm, but the sky itself, vast, steady, and always there, no matter what passed through. That realization didn't make her problems vanish overnight, but it gave her a new way to relate to them, with compassion instead of fear. This is the transformative power of stillness. It is not a barren emptiness, but a welcoming space where you can find your true self beneath the noise. It teaches you that your identity is not your thoughts or your emotions. It's the awareness that observes them. Stillness also holds the key to clarity. When the mind is cluttered, decisions feel overwhelming and our sense of direction blurs. But in stillness, the fog lifts. You begin to hear the subtle truths that busy noise drowns out, the whisper of intuition, the quiet nudges of your heart, the gentle knowing that guides you forward. There is a reason why many spiritual traditions emphasize stillness through meditation, prayer, or contemplation. It is a universal door to insight, peace, and connection. And yet, stillness doesn't belong only to monks or yogis. It is available to every person, every day, in simple moments, pausing during a hectic afternoon, breathing deeply before a meeting, walking quietly in nature. But cultivating stillness takes practice. The mind resists because it fears losing control or facing uncomfortable truths. It wants to keep busy, to avoid silence like a dark room. The first steps might feel awkward or even unsettling. That's normal. You're not emptying your mind, you're gently inviting yourself home. One practice that helps is what I call the pause of presence. Whenever you find a moment, a cup of coffee, a quiet street, a breath between thoughts, stop. Simply notice your surroundings without judgment or rush. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Listen to the sounds without labeling them. Breathe into the stillness. Over time, these pauses build a sanctuary inside you, a place where the knower lives, steady, calm, unshaken by the noise of life. This sanctuary isn't separate from your daily experience. In fact, it is the ground beneath everything you do. When you act from stillness, your choices carry more power. Your relationships deepen, and your presence becomes a gift to others. Stillness reveals that life is not a problem to solve or a race to win. It is a dance to be felt, a mystery to be embraced. The silence is not a gap to fill, but a vast space that holds all possibilities. As you move forward on this journey, remember, stillness isn't empty. It is full of wisdom, peace, and the deep knowing that you are enough, just as you are. Chapter 6. The Wound You Won't Speak Of. There's a wound inside you, one you carry silently, carefully hidden beneath layers of laughter, strength, and distraction. It's not a wound that bleeds visibly, nor one spoken about openly. Instead, it's a quiet ache, a shadow stitched into the fabric of your being. It lingers beneath your everyday smiles and the bravado you show the world. Maybe you don't even fully remember how it got there. Maybe you tell yourself you've moved past it, but the wound still whispers, shaping your thoughts, your fears, and your deepest hesitations. This wound is personal. It's the one story you rarely share, the one memory you guard against revisiting. It's the loss you never fully mourned, the betrayal too painful to voice, or the feeling of not being enough that no one else sees. It might live in the silence after a fight, in the space left by someone who walked away, or in the quiet moments when loneliness wraps itself around you like a heavy cloak. You aren't alone in carrying this hidden hurt. Every human being carries wounds they don't speak of. Behind the polished exterior of everyone you meet lies some story of pain, rejection, or loss they keep locked away. Yet it's the very presence of these wounds, unseen and unheard, that shapes so much of how we move through the world. We build walls around ourselves, avoid vulnerability, or retreat into distraction, all because the wound still holds its power. But here's the secret. The wound you won't speak of is not a weakness. It's a doorway. It's a doorway to deeper self-awareness, to true healing, and to the part of you that watches without judgment, the silent knower inside. This knower does not shy away from pain. It welcomes it, observes it, and holds space for it without fear. When you face the wound with this quiet witness, something remarkable happens. The wound begins to lose its grip. It no longer controls you from the shadows because you've brought it into the light of your awareness. Let me tell you a story. Sarah, a woman from a small town in Ohio, carried a wound she barely dared to name. As a child, she had been told she wasn't smart enough or pretty enough by voices she trusted most. Those words carved deep into her spirit, shaping her into a perfectionist who was never satisfied. She built a life trying to prove her worth through achievement, never realizing how the silent wound of self-doubt quietly governed every decision she made. One day, during a silent meditation retreat, Sarah sat with the pain she usually ran from. For hours, she simply watched the ache inside her, the voice of her younger self, still crying out for acceptance. Instead of fighting it, she allowed herself to feel the loneliness, the fear, and the sorrow. And in that stillness, something shifted. The wound stopped being an enemy to fight and became a teacher to listen to. She realized that those harsh words from childhood were not the truth of who she was. They were a story she had outgrown. Sarah's story is not unique. We all have our Sarah moments, where the silent knower invites us to look gently at what we hide. The wound wants acknowledgement, not denial. It wants healing, not erasure. And it can only begin to heal when we stop running and start observing. So, why is it so hard to face the wound? Because it's terrifying to open old scars. It's painful to sit with the hurt instead of distracting ourselves with busyness or numbing comforts. It's uncomfortable to lower the armor we've built over years or even decades. But consider this: avoidance gives the wound power. Silence lets it grow. Every time you push it away, you feed the very thing you want to escape. The wound does not disappear by pretending it isn't there. It remains alive, shaping your fears, your relationships, and your self-image. The silent knower teaches a different way, a way of compassionate witnessing. Imagine sitting quietly with that pain, not trying to fix it or bury it, but simply being present. Imagine offering your wounded self kindness instead of judgment. Imagine seeing the wound as a part of your story, but not the whole story. This practice transforms the wound from a source of shame into a wellspring of strength. It connects you with the deeper part of yourself that knows you are more than your pain. It invites you into a sacred space where healing begins, not by changing the past, but by changing how you relate to it. Healing is not a linear path. Some days, the wound feels raw and close to the surface. Other days, it rests quietly in the background. The silent knower understands that healing is a journey, not a destination. It encourages patience, gentleness, and presence. Here's a simple step you can take right now. Find a quiet moment today to sit with your silent wound. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Invite yourself to sense the place inside where that old hurt lives. You don't need to change it or fix it, just notice it. Allow your awareness to be like a gentle light shining into the dark corners. Offer yourself a few words of kindness, as if you were comforting a dear friend. This small act of presence can begin to loosen the hold the wound has on you. Remember, the wound you won't speak of is also the doorway to your deepest wisdom. When you embrace it with the silent knower, you reclaim your power. You become whole, not despite your pain, but because of the courage it takes to face it. In this chapter of The Silent Knower, we invite you to meet your hidden wound, not with fear or resistance, but with the quiet strength of the watcher within. Your pain is part of your story, but it does not define you. The silent knower sees beyond the wound to the light waiting to shine through. Chapter 7. Sacred Forgetting. There was a time when you knew everything, or at least it felt that way. Before the noise, before the endless distractions, before life pulled you into its tangled web, there was a moment of pure clarity. The kind of knowing that didn't come from books, teachers, or even experience. It was a silent, intimate certainty, a homecoming to yourself. And then somewhere along the way, that knowing slipped away. You forgot. But what if this forgetting wasn't a mistake or a loss? What if it was sacred? Sacred forgetting is the quiet space between what once was and what will be. It is the soul's deliberate pause, a necessary stepping back so that remembering can emerge anew, stronger and wiser. The moment you forget, the universe invites you to rediscover yourself, not as you were, but as you are meant to become. This idea might seem paradoxical. We live in a culture obsessed with memory, achievement, and accumulating more knowledge. We fear forgetting, losing our keys, our names, even our sense of purpose. But the deepest forgetting is different. It is a forgetting that clears away the old stories, the worn-out identities, the fears and limitations that no longer serve you. It is a sacred erasure, a blank canvas inviting the brush strokes of a new self. Consider the ancient myths. The hero's journey often begins with a kind of forgetting. The protagonist leaves the familiar world, loses their bearings, and descends into a kind of darkness or confusion. It is in that void, stripped of certainty and old identity, that the hero finds transformation. Sacred forgetting, then, is not defeat. It is the fertile ground of rebirth. You too have traveled this path. Maybe it was a time of heartbreak, loss, or doubt. Perhaps it was a moment when everything you thought you knew about yourself or the world fell away. In that clearing of old illusions, the silent knower stirs, waiting patiently beneath the noise. But sacred forgetting isn't just about personal crisis. It's a universal rhythm. Nature knows this well. The trees shed their leaves each autumn, not as a loss, but as a preparation for new growth. The river carves new paths by letting go of the old banks. Even the stars in their ancient cycles die and are reborn in dazzling displays. Forgetting is the pulse of life itself. When you embrace sacred forgetting, you stop resisting the changes within you. You stop clinging to the versions of yourself that no longer fit. You open to the mystery that beneath the surface, your silent knower remains unchanged, an unshakable presence beneath the shifting sands of memory and identity. This presence doesn't require you to remember everything or hold on tightly to the past. Instead, it invites you to rest in the awareness that, no matter what is forgotten, the core of who you are remains. Like an underground spring that never dries, your silent knower flows beneath the surface, ready to nourish your being when you need it most. One of the most profound teachings about sacred forgetting comes from the idea that forgetting allows us to be free. Free from the chains of old pain, old fears and old judgments, free to experience life freshly, as if for the first time. It is an invitation to wonder, curiosity, and open-heartedness. Imagine waking each day with a beginner's mind, no expectations, no preconceptions, just presence. This is the gift of sacred forgetting, the chance to meet life anew, unburdened by the weight of what came before. Of course, forgetting is not always easy. It can feel like losing control, like drifting without a compass. But what if surrendering to this unknown is exactly where your power lies? What if, by letting go of the stories that no longer serve you, you step into the vastness of your true self? The silent knower whispers this truth gently. You are more than the sum of your memories. You are not your past. You are the presence that witnesses all, unchanged and whole. In moments of sacred forgetting, it's natural to feel vulnerable or uncertain. But vulnerability is not weakness. It is the gateway to authenticity. When you stop pretending to have all the answers, you open space for genuine connection. With yourself, with others, and with the deeper currents of life. Sacred forgetting invites you to ask, what am I ready to release? What old stories or beliefs have I outgrown? What parts of myself am I willing to let go so the new can emerge? This process is not a one-time event, but a continual unfolding. Each day offers new opportunities to forget what no longer fits and remember who you truly are. So how do you practice sacred forgetting? Begin by noticing what thoughts or stories you cling to without questioning. Observe how these shape your identity and limit your experience. Then gently invite yourself to let go, not by force, but by curiosity and kindness. Meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in silence can open this space. Imagine your mind as a river flowing gently, carrying away the leaves and debris of old stories. Watch them float downstream without grasping. Celebrate the freedom that comes when you stop trying to hold on to everything. Trust that beneath the surface, your silent knower remains steady, a lighthouse in the fog. In this sacred forgetting lies the promise of renewal, a return to your true essence, unclouded by noise, ready to dance with life's endless mystery. Chapter 8. The Mirror of Others. We often think of others as separate from ourselves, distinct individuals moving through the world with their own stories, emotions, and actions. Yet, beneath the surface of every relationship lies a quiet truth. The way we see others reflects what lives inside us. Each person we encounter acts like a mirror, not just showing us their own reflection, but revealing fragments of our own soul. Imagine standing in front of an ornate mirror, one that doesn't merely reflect your face, but exposes the unseen corners of your inner world. When you look closely, you begin to notice patterns, how certain faces evoke anger, others compassion, some indifference, and a few pure love. These reactions aren't random. They carry messages about yourself, messages that can be unsettling or enlightening. Take, for example, the friend whose judgment cuts deeper than any sword. Their criticism feels like a personal attack, yet beneath the sting lies an invitation to explore the judgments you hold about yourself. What harsh words do you say silently inside? What unforgiven parts do you hide away? The mirror doesn't lie. It simply shows back what's there, waiting to be understood. Or consider the person whose kindness moves you profoundly. Their gentle spirit stirs something within, reminding you of your own capacity to love and heal. Often, the qualities we admire most in others are reflections of the potential we have buried inside ourselves, waiting to be uncovered and nurtured. The mirror of others is not a tool for blame or avoidance, but a gateway to self-awareness and growth. It calls us to look inward, to face the emotions triggered by others without turning away. This is difficult because it means confronting parts of ourselves that may be uncomfortable, messy, or hidden. Yet, it is only through this courageous reflection that true healing begins. Relationships, whether with family, friends, colleagues, or strangers, act as sacred spaces where the silent knower within us can witness and learn. When we approach these mirrors with curiosity rather than judgment, they become powerful teachers. Every conflict becomes an opportunity to understand our fears. Every moment of connection becomes a chance to recognize our capacity for empathy. The silent knower watches without reacting, simply observing the dance of emotions and thoughts that arise when we interact with others. It understands that others are not the source of our pain or joy. They are reflections, revealing what we carry inside. Consider a moment when someone's words or actions stirred a deep reaction in you. Instead of blaming them or pushing the feeling away, imagine turning inward to ask, what is this feeling telling me about myself? What part of me is reflected here? This practice transforms pain into insight and conflict into compassion. Moreover, the mirror of others reveals a profound interconnectedness. We are not isolated beings, but threads woven into the fabric of each other's lives. The kindness you offer another may ripple back in ways unseen, just as the wounds you carry may influence those around you in subtle ways. Recognizing this interconnectedness invites a deeper sense of responsibility, not as burden, but as a gift. There is freedom in this realization. When you stop seeing others as enemies or obstacles and start seeing them as mirrors, you reclaim your power. You no longer give away control by blaming external forces for your inner turmoil. Instead, you embrace the silent knower's wisdom, that the power to heal, grow, and transform lies within you. This shift also transforms how we experience forgiveness. Forgiveness is no longer about condoning harm done by others. It becomes a healing of our own wounds, reflected in their actions. When you forgive, you release not only the other person, but also yourself from the chains of resentment. In the end, the mirror of others is a call to awakening, to recognize the sacred dance of reflection happening in every interaction. It challenges us to see beyond surface appearances, to honor the complexity of human experience, and to hold space for both light and shadow. So next time you feel triggered by someone's behavior, pause and look deeper. See what part of you is reflected there. Invite the silent knower to witness without judgment. You might find that the mirror you feared was a doorway to your truest self all along. Chapter 9. The Path That Waited for You. There's a quiet truth most people don't realize until much later in life. The path they've been searching for, the one that promises meaning, purpose, or peace, was always beneath their feet. It wasn't hidden in some far-off place, some secret code, or a mysterious book. It was there all along, waiting patiently for you to slow down enough to notice. For years, you might have been chasing a vision of what life should be. You followed the loudest voices, expectations from family, culture, or even your own restless mind, believing that if you could just reach the next goal, land that perfect job, find the right person, or finally understand yourself, everything would fall into place. Yet despite the constant motion and striving, something inside you kept whispering that the way forward wasn't on the surface, but deep below it. This path, the one waiting for you, does not shout or demand. It does not come with neon signs or a crowded highway. Instead, it's like a gentle river, steady and unseen beneath the noise. When you finally slow your breath, quiet the chaos around you, and turn your gaze inward, you begin to glimpse it. You sense the pull of something real, something authentic, your own true essence calling you home. It's a paradox, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives searching outside ourselves for answers that already exist within. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, offers no shortcuts. It waits for us to arrive in stillness, to meet ourselves without masks, without distractions. The path that waited for you is the one that leads inward. The illusion of the road ahead. It's easy to believe that life is a journey with a clear map, a start, middle, and destination laid out before us. From childhood, we are taught to plan, to set goals, to push forward. Success is measured by milestones reached, trophies earned, or bank accounts filled. But what if this idea of a linear path is a clever illusion? The path that awaited you has always been non-linear, more like a spiral or a dance. It moves through cycles of learning and unlearning, of growing and surrendering. Sometimes it takes you deep into darkness, other times into light. It isn't about rushing forward, it's about unfolding layer by layer. Many spend decades wandering, frustrated because the path seems invisible. Yet, often, the reason is that they've been looking outside, in relationships, possessions, achievements, rather than tuning into the silent compass within, the compass of inner knowing. Imagine you have a compass that points not north, but inward. It doesn't guide you to a place on a map, but toward the truth of who you are beneath all the noise. This compass has always been with you, but you may have forgotten how to read it. The silent knower inside you is the keeper of this compass. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It waits patiently, like a lighthouse shining in the fog, guiding you when you finally choose to see. This inner guide speaks through feelings, subtle nudges, and moments of clarity. Maybe it showed up as a quiet sense of dissatisfaction with your current path or a sudden inspiration that seemed to come from nowhere. These are the markers of the path that was always yours, surrendering to the unseen journey. To walk this path requires courage, the courage to surrender control, to let go of the need for certainty. The world around you may crave answers and plans, but the path that waited for you invites you into mystery. There is a sacred unfolding in surrendering to what you cannot yet see. It's the willingness to trust that even when you cannot predict the next step, The ground will be there to support you. Walking the path isn't about knowing every detail. It's about leaning into the unknown with faith that you are guided. It's about trusting the process rather than forcing an outcome. 2. Gift of waiting. In our culture of instant gratification, waiting feels like wasted time. But the path that waited for you teaches that waiting is a gift. Waiting gives you space to grow roots beneath the surface. It allows the quiet transformation that no rushing can achieve. It's in the waiting that your deepest self prepares to emerge fully. You might feel restless, frustrated, or lost during this time, and that's okay. These feelings are part of the refining fire. The key is to stay present and not mistake restlessness for failure. Signs along the way. When you start to walk this path, signs appear, not always obvious, but unmistakable once you learn to recognize them. Synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, feelings of peace after a storm, or sudden clarity in moments of doubt. These signs are whispers from the silent knower, reminders that you're not alone, that you're on the right track. You are the path. Ultimately, the path you've been searching for isn't a place to arrive at. It's a way of being. The path and the traveler are one. When you embrace this truth, everything changes. You stop chasing external validations and start living from the center of your own soul. Your steps become lighter, your heart clearer, and your vision wider. The path awaits right now, wherever you are, whether you feel lost or near. Remember this. The path has been waiting patiently for you. It has never left. It is the quiet song beneath the chaos, the gentle pulse that beats in your chest. You don't have to search any longer. You only need to listen. Chapter 10. The return to the real you. There comes a moment in every journey when the endless searching, the chasing after answers, the frantic questioning suddenly stills. You stop climbing the mountain, turn around, and realize the path leads. Not somewhere out there, but back to yourself. Not to a different you, but the real you, the one that was always beneath the noise, beneath the confusion, beneath the false identities you wore like armor. For most of your life, you may have felt like a traveler lost in a foreign land, desperately seeking a place that felt like home. The truth, however, is much simpler and more profound. You were never truly lost. The real you was quietly waiting, a silent witness beneath the chaos of your thoughts and fears. Now, after all the detours and distractions, you're ready to come back to that still, unshakable presence. This return is not a sudden event or a dramatic revelation. It's a gentle unfolding, a peeling away of layers built up by years of conditioning, doubt, and trying to fit into molds that never quite fit. The real you is not defined by your job, your relationships, your achievements, or even your failures. It's the presence that watches those things come and go, untouched and steady. Think back to a time when you felt utterly yourself, a moment so pure and unfiltered that the rest of the world seemed to disappear. Maybe it was a quiet morning watching the sunrise, a walk in nature where the air felt alive, or a conversation where you spoke your truth without hesitation. Those moments are glimpses of the real you shining through, moments when your inner knower spoke louder than the external noise. The real you is not hidden or distant. It's the essence of your being. It's the voice of calm in the storm, the observer who never judges, the light that simply is. It doesn't ask for approval or seek validation. It simply exists, perfectly whole and complete. Yet returning to this self requires courage. It means letting go of identities that no longer serve you, the mask of perfection, the role of the victim, the persona of the achiever. It means embracing vulnerability and accepting that your worth is not tied to what you do or what others think of you. It means recognizing the stories you tell yourself and choosing to see beyond them. This journey home is deeply personal, but it's also universal. Every culture, every spiritual tradition points to the same truth. Happiness and peace are found not in external things, but in the awareness of who you truly are. The ancient sages called it the self, the Atman, or the soul. Modern psychology speaks of the true self beneath the ego's layers. Whatever name you choose, the real you is the foundation beneath all experiences. As you return to yourself, you begin to notice the subtle shifts. The incessant mental chatter softens. The need to control or resist life's flow eases. You find a deep sense of acceptance, even for your imperfections and shadows. There's a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything because it knows its own worth. This return also invites a new way of relating to the world. Instead of seeking to fix or escape reality, you start to embrace it as it is, with all its beauty and pain. You become a participant in life's unfolding, grounded in the awareness that you are both the observer and the observed. This balance creates harmony within, no longer fragmented by conflicting desires or fears. Importantly, returning to the real you is not about isolation or turning inward to the exclusion of connection. On the contrary, it deepens your relationships because you show up authentically. You listen with more presence, love without conditions, and forgive with compassion. When you are aligned with your true self, the walls between you and others soften, revealing the shared humanity beneath. This chapter of your journey marks a profound transformation. The outer search ends, and the inner journey begins. The silent Noah, the calm awareness behind every thought and emotion, becomes your guide and companion. You learn to trust this inner voice, even when the world feels uncertain or chaotic. Remember, the real you was never lost. It was simply waiting for your attention, patiently holding space beneath every doubt and distraction. Returning to yourself is the greatest gift you can give, not only to yourself, but to the world. As you close this book, carry this truth with you. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through your unique presence. The silent knower within is always there, whispering the timeless truth. You are whole, you are enough, and you are home.